All right, this week I'm going to introduce you to my alter ego, Little Caesar. Um, Put together a little rap a couple years back. Thought I'd share it with you also. Hope you can bear with my rapping skills. But here we go. Et tu, talking assassination, Republic offers no representation. Et tu, masters of the Tiber, Rome grows into a world power. Yo, a world power. Yo, feel the power. You see, Caesar gave it a try. The rich gotta die. Pompey left all alone. Hey, look, he may cry. Julius now on the rise. It's power he eyes. Senate starts to sweat. Are they willing to bet? Et tu, a rearrangin'. You see, the times they be a changin'. Et tu, Pompey and the Senate have to decide if they will let it. Will they regret it? Decide and don't fret it. The die was soon cast. The republic can't last. Pompey now on the run. Julius having some fun. Pompey's head will soon pop. Julius now on the top. Cleopatra be hot. Caesar like her a lot. Et tu, hanging on the Nile. Problems can wait just for a while. Et tu, living like a pharaoh. Senate can't stop them. Will they dare though? Send an arrow? That path be narrow. Vini vidi vici proclaim, this man he insane, someone get me a knife, need to end his life. Ides of March grab the fame, Brutus takes his aim, now comes the hour to take back the power. So the king he now lies, with blood in his eyes, the great Caesar sighs, the republic it cries. Et tu Brute, killed his friend in the worst way, et tu Brute, just killed the king, was he saving the day? The patrician way. Now it's okay. Freedom they yell, Caesar to hell, republic we save, Caesar in his grave. The Tritu will emerge, the Senate is purged, Lepidus left out, he ain't about to pout. Mark Antony seizes the moment, just one last opponent, Octavian popping his zits, but has his name and his wits. Et tu, man versus boy, but Octavian plays Anthony like a toy. Et tu, Anthony gets the east, Octavian stays back and becomes the beast. Will it cease? Least to beast? The spell must be strong, didn't take Cleo long, Anthony fall for her favor, Egyptian life he did savor. The script was now seen, Anthony make Cleo queen, Octavian will muster a legion and put down the treason. Octavian's victory was easy. Anthony got a little queasy. Then he takes his last gasp. Cleopatra bit by an asp. Et tu, rise up Augustus, hail the new Caesar from amongst us. Et tu, press delete. The rise of the empire is now complete. Yo, hail Caesar. Well, there you go. Little Caesar, Roman style. All right. Hopefully you won't share that with too many people, if any. I have a little reputation to kind of uphold here. So here's the story then. What I'd like to do is go through each one of those slides and just kind of tell you the story of how Julius Caesar, with that first triumvirate, rises to great power, but is assassinated by the Roman Senate. The Roman Senate feels that they've saved the republic, but unfortunately they don't. Or fortunately, it depends on how you look at it. We have the rise of the second triumvirate. A guy by the name of Augustus Caesar is going to rise up and take that power. So let's take a look at those slides and get you filled in on what happens with Julius Caesar and the Roman Republic. Okay, so when we take a look at this first slide, biggest thing is to understand that the Roman Republic was controlled by the rich and powerful, and even though it's supposed to be a representative government, it represented basically the wealthy, and the poor kept on getting poorer. It's one of the things that we should learn as a nation also. But then to kind of go on with that, during the 200s and the 100s, Rome grows into a major world power. And of course, the city of Rome is located on the Tiber, and they're also known as masters of the Tiber. So, when we left off, we talked about how Julius Caesar was this up-and-coming uh, figure in Roman politics, but he needed help to get to where he wanted to be. And he got his help by joining forces with a guy by the name of Pompey in the lower left-hand corner, who was very powerful. He was the ideal patrician. He was the upper class, he was elite, and he was a great general. And then Crassus, he was another elite, and Crassus was unbelievably rich. Okay, one of the wealthiest people in world history, they say. And so he joins forces with those two guys, and they form this thing called the First Triumvirate. Here's what happens. Caesar gets sent off, or he has himself assigned to Gaul. And it's up in Gaul, remember, that he becomes rich and famous and powerful. And when he's up there, Crassus is like, man, I want to do what Julius Caesar is doing. And so Crassus has himself assigned a governorship in the eastern provinces over in the Middle East. But unfortunately, Crassus gets killed. And that's where the rich got to die. Crassus dies. And that left basically Pompey to go head-to-head with Julius Caesar. And Pompey knows that Julius Caesar is pretty darn powerful, and thus he might have cried. So Julius Caesar on this one, now on the rise, the power he's eyeing, that's where, again, Julius Caesar conquers Gaul, gains all this power. The Senate, though, as Julius Caesar is up there, really start to worry about what Julius Caesar is thinking about. What's his intention? They're afraid of his growing power. And so one of the things that they're going to try to do is take that power away. So they ask Julius Caesar to put down his arms and come back to Rome. So when we look at this one then, the times be changing. Pompey and the Senate have to decide, what are we going to do with this powerful figure by the name of Julius Caesar? Are we going to ask him to put down his arms? And if we do, what is his action going to be? So, what happens then? They do ask Julius Caesar to put down his arms and come back, but Julius Caesar, now with the loyalty of his troops, because this is how the Roman military is now set up, right? That the troops are now loyal to the general, okay, going back to Marius and then Sulla. Julius Caesar tells his soldiers, hey, let's go back to Rome. They're messing with our, Roman world. We need to set things straight. And his people then, his soldiers, yeah, let's go. All right, they are all about going back and helping Julius Caesar. And Pompey, his fears are realized. Julius Caesar is awesome on the battlefield. And so he's on the run, and Julius is having some fun. What happens then is Pompey heads out and gets out of town, and he goes to eventually Egypt, where he's going to seek kind of like asylum. He's going to try to get away from Julius Caesar. But when he gets to Egypt, the Egyptians, knowing the story, knowing Julius Caesar is after Pompey, cut his head off, and that's where his head will soon pop. And that leaves Julius Caesar as the sole survivor of the First Triumvirate. He's on top. And when he gets to Egypt, in comes the story of Cleopatra. And Cleopatra and her brother were in a little skirmish over who was going to be in power. Cleopatra uses her hotness, all right, to persuade the 50-year-old Julius Caesar, and Cleopatra at this point in time is like 20, to join her side. And they get rid of the brother, and Cleopatra then becomes the queen of Egypt. And yes, okay, she and Julius Caesar have this torrid love affair for a number of months. And they actually have a kid together by the name of Caesarion. So, he hangs at the Nile, likes the life of the pharaoh. Again, Egypt is still a great place to control because of the Nile and because of the food source and stuff like that, and all of its wonder. And now we're looking at, this is like 3,000 years almost after the first pyramid was being built. So The Senate now is still wondering, what is Julius Caesar up to? Veni, Vidi, Vici is a message that Julius Caesar sent back to the Roman Senate after he defeated one of the Roman enemies that he was sent to put down. A group was trying to rebel against him, and it means, I came, I saw, I conquered. One of the things that Julius Caesar's kind of like his fault is he was overconfident. He didn't think anybody could touch him. And that is going to eventually lead to him walking around Rome without much bodyguards, much protection at all. So when he does this, the Roman Senate kind of feels like Julius Caesar is going to try to make himself king. And they need to stop this madman from destroying the Republic. So the Ides of March is the 15th of March, and that is the day in 44 BC that Julius Caesar is assassinated. Brutus is one of his kind of like proteges. They got along really well. Julius Caesar liked Brutus and thought that Brutus would be one of his main allies. And Beware the Ides of March, in the poem by Shakespeare on Julius Caesar, there's a story that Shakespeare wrote. A soothsayer constantly was telling Julius Caesar to beware the Ides of March. And so, on the Ides of March in 44 BC, Julius Caesar is stabbed 27 times by the Roman Senate. So, et tu, Brute is in the story by Shakespeare the last words that Julius Caesar says. Actually, one of the last words. When he sees that his buddy, his pal, Brutus, is a part of the conspiracy, William Shakespeare writes down that Julius Caesar looks at him and says, "Et tu, Brute," which means, "You too, Brutus? Then die, Caesar." And that's the end of the life of Julius Caesar, according to Shakespeare. And so the patrician way, ever since we go back to Gaius and Tiberius Gracchus, two tribunes who tried to make changes, and Julius Caesar tried to make changes also to take power away from the rich and give more power to the poor, give more land to the poor. The patricians didn't want to see their power, their wealth be taken away. And thus they saw Julius Caesar as a threat who was going to be a king. And this is what the patricians do to people who try to make changes to the Republic. So when the senators get done killing Julius Caesar, they come out of the Senate hall yelling freedom, okay, that they saved the Republic from the tyranny of a king, because a king was a bad word. They hadn't had a king for 500 years. And they felt that they did the right thing. Unfortunately, Julius Caesar and the first triumvirate is only going to be replaced by a second group of three individuals. And those three individuals are going to be Mark Antony, over in the lower left-hand side. He is going to be Julius Caesar's right-hand man, top general. Logical choice. He is going to be the one that's going to track down and assassinate the senators that killed Julius Caesar. Octavian Caesar, up on top right there, man, he's like 16, 17 years old. He's a young punk kid, but he is the grandnephew of Julius Caesar, and he's the heir to Julius Caesar's power. And so Octavian Caesar is going to come to Rome and form an uneasy truce between him and Mark Antony and another general by the name of Lepidus. But Lepidus is quickly going to be told, why don't you go retire? And that's where it says Lepidus left out. Lepidus said, sounds good to me, and realizes that he's not in this gig. And so the second triumvirate is more of a biumvirate, just two of them than anything. Now, like I said, Mark Antony is the guy who really looks like he is going to replace Julius Caesar as the dictator, consul, top dog of the Roman Republic. But Octavian, even though he's young, has Julius Caesar's name. And he is very, very smart. And that's probably the one thing that he has over his great uncle, is that he's really smart at figuring out the political game of Rome. And he's going to use that to eventually rise to the top. So we get this situation where it's Octavian versus Anthony, the boy versus the man. They divide up the empire, and the green area there on that map is going to be the territory that's going to be given to not Octavian, Anthony. And Anthony is going to get the east, where Egypt and Cleopatra is going to be located. And Octavian is going to get the west, and he's going to be a part or stay in Rome. And when he stays in Rome, he's going to be able to get the public opinion to go against Mark Antony. So when Mark Antony goes to the east, it didn't take long before he and Cleopatra were in a torrid love affair. And Cleopatra used, again, her looks to sway the great Mark Antony, just like she did Cleopatra. And so they have a love affair. And actually, from all accounts, it was a true love affair. They did really like each other. So eventually, what happens is Octavian then uses this and starts to proclaim that Mark Antony has turned Egyptian, that he's going to make Cleopatra the queen, and that the Roman world needs to join forces against Mark Antony and Cleopatra. And that's exactly what Octavian Caesar does, is he sets out his troops and they put down Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Now, another thing that you have to understand at this point in time, this is about, I'd say 15 years later, at least 15 years later. So Mark Antony's older, Cleopatra's older, and of course Octavian is now in his 30s. And so he is a man who is making man decisions at this point in time. So Octavian defeats Mark Antony. Anthony realizes that he's done, and if he allows Octavian to capture him, he's going to be paraded along with Cleopatra in front of the Roman people on the streets of Rome in a triumphant parade. And so the story goes that Mark Antony commits suicide, and Cleopatra, realizing her fate, has a poisonous snake called an asp kill her. And thus, we have the rise of Augustus. And what happens is, this is the moment that the Roman Republic becomes the Roman Empire. Augustus is the nickname that Octavian takes, and it means kind of like the revered one, the almost godlike status. And Julius Caesar, by this point in time, is going to be seen like as a god. And so Octavian becomes Augustus Caesar. We now have Hail Caesar. A Caesar is a great ruler. The purple, to wear the purple, is going to be to wear it's the color of royalty, all the way back to the Phoenicians had that purple. And that's how the Roman Republic ends. So, big picture of the Roman Republic is that the Roman Republic started to be ruled by too many wealthy people who were more concerned about their wealth and their power than the control in the good of the Roman world. And to tell the truth, an empire is really hard to be controlled by a group of people like that. An emperor can come in and make quick, hard, tough decisions, and as long as that emperor is not crazy, okay, good things can happen when an emperor is ruling an empire. So that is how the Roman Republic ends, and that is the rise of Augustus Caesar, and that's who we'll be talking about next.